There's no question about it. Buying a home can be an extremely exciting process, and it can also be very frustrating, especially here in the GTA, where the supply cannot keep up with the demand of buyers. So what I wanted to look at was what happened in October, so we can later compare after November and those stats are released. So I wanted to look at what's actually sold under $1 million. And why $1 million? Well, because the average price in October was $997. So let's just call it $1 million even. So first, what we're going to look at is the amount of properties sold, and then how many of those were actually less than $1 million in Mississauga. So total, there's 959 properties sold in October. Flipping over to my screen here, what does $1 million buy you in Mississauga? So out of those 959, 576 of those sold for less than $1 million. So that's 60% of properties. Okay, great. What is in that 60%? Detached, we had 10 sales. That's barely 2% of the market. Semi-detached saw 44 sales, just over 7.5%. Freehold towns, 17 sales, bringing us at just under 3%. 149 condo townhomes, bringing us just over 25%. And I'm sure you could have guessed it, 354 condo apartments, giving us the fair share of almost 61.5% of sales. So what is the point in telling you this? Well, it's pretty obvious looking at the numbers. If you have a budget less than $1 million, it's going to be extremely difficult to get a detached property. And obviously, yes, it's possible 10 sold last month. And of those, how many of them were actually livable? Probably not very many. Yes, there's the odd exception. If it was a nice property, it might not be in the most desirable neighborhood. So something to keep in mind there. A lot of buyers I'm finding are saving for the property that they want. Of course, who wouldn't want the large detached home on a big piece of land with all the bedrooms and home offices and finished basement, everything you need, right? And instead, they should be focusing on buying what they can currently afford. One of the most common comments that I get from people are, oh my God, how is anyone affording anything in this market? Where's all this money coming from? Well, number one, the people buying the detached and the semis and the freehold towns typically aren't first-time home buyers. They have bought many years ago and they've built up that equity and saved for a down payment to be able to move up into these properties. So it's a transfer of equity from the other property types because they've owned those properties for some time. And you also have families who have been in the GTA for 50, 60 years, helping the grandkids buy their first property by using that equity that they've built, and they're using that money to help out their family. So that is what's happening. It's a transfer of wealth, a transfer of that equity versus, wow, someone just saved a lot of money to be able to buy that detached house. Very rarely is it a first-time buyer buying a detached home. And I see it time and time again where people are saving up to buy the property they want versus buying the property that they can currently afford just to get their foot in the market and get started building that equity. So when's the best time to buy? When you can, and when you have the ability to buy that first property, understanding now how the real estate game works, how these other people are affording these properties. It's through building equity and leveraging their current property. Step number one is just to get that first property. You may have to sacrifice some space or maybe even the location. Most important thing is just getting your foot in the door and owning a piece of real estate at a price that you can afford. Thanks so much for watching. Any questions, leave them in the comments below and we'll see you on the next video.